Hi traders, so today we're going to be taking a look at pound US dollar or cable. We're going to be having a little look at the news surrounding cable, strength and weakness analysis and the conditions. So let's go and take a look at some of the data that's dropped today in the UK. We've had core CPI month on month and year on year, and we've had CPI month on month, year on year, and also PPI. And CPI actually came in a little bit above expectations, but still down. So 3.2%, down from the previous 3.4%, which you can see here. I'm showing you the inflation rate here in the UK, and you can see the steady decline that it's on. This is what's fueling that potential for the Bank of England to cut interest rates. Now, taking a look at the commitment of trader reports and analysis and the seasonality analysis, we had huge sells coming in on the previous COT reports. So if I just highlight this here, we were talking about potentially shorting pounds around this 1.3 level because we had huge upside on the non-commercials that was in extreme levels, and we had huge commercial sells which were in extreme levels as well. So that tells us that there's potentially some room for some downside in the market, and that's exactly what we had. We had price kind of continue to sort of push to the downside. Now those have faded quite quickly in terms of the fact that pound has moved lower and we're starting to see commercials buying it up. That tells me that maybe we are going to see a little bit of a potential pullback in the price. They find that that price is fairly cheap, they're buying that price up. The non-commercials going downwards, that's because they're trend following and they're following the downward trend. What's interesting about cable for me, or for pound in general, is the seasonality in April. I know that we're pretty much through to the middle of April now, but usually there is a sharp move up for the last sort of couple of weeks of April before seeing a little bit of a top out, before seeing some downside in May. And that's quite interesting considering where the market stands right now. And if we have a little look at the conditions of the market and where we are, we can see that price is clearly in a downward trend. We're making lower lows and lower highs. We've recently breached this one spot 25.50 handle, which was very significant swing lows in the market, and you can see we even paused before we breached it to the downside. What's interesting to me though is where price is. You know, when I'm looking at conditions, I'm looking at, is it in an upward trend, is it in a downward trend, is it in a range? It's definitely in that downward trend. But what phase are we in? So I look at the market as in, are we in a primary phase or are we in a secondary phase? So primary phase, secondary phase, primary phase, secondary phase. Are we approaching a secondary phase here right now? And does that mean there's a good potential for price to try and trade back up to one spot 25.50 for the next potential couple of weeks before seeing a continuation to the downside, or that topping effect in May essentially? So that's what I'm looking for here right now. Are we going to get a little bit more of a pullback and a continuation? You can see I've got alerts set just above these daily highs, because I think if we breach above this area here, this consolidation, then it opens the door for a move up to one spot 25.50. There is the flip side of that though, because we are seeing some effective dollar strength at the minute, and if we hold hold below this current area where we're seeing these wicks and highs coming into play, then we may try and trade a little bit lower. There are some other levels a little bit lower on pound, which is sort of around about the one spot 23s and one spot 22s, so that's also something to consider. But for me, pound could potentially pull back in the next coming few days. We'll see how it reacts. Can it trade back up towards one spot 25.50?